Ludzie z wartościami. Seria inspirujących rozmów. Zapraszamy.
Hello, today on our podcast, People with Value, I have privilege to welcome Mike'a Poulin. He is great friend of many friends whom from America, from South America and North America, Catch the Fire, and my friends. And really, it's privilege to have you today, and I would love to welcome you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you. This is a new relationship, and I could see we have many things and people in common. Yeah.
Yes, you are the International Director of Global Priority Solutions. What personal journey led you into values-based roundtable transformation work?
Well, that's a great question. It started 32 years ago.
Wow.
I met my mentor, John Schrock, and I met Jerry Anderson in Panama. And they introduced me to values and the round table. And my mentor said to me 32 years ago, he said, Mike, one day everyone will be talking about values. He said, and if you do this, you will be before world leaders. And so, but I started doing it because I needed it. I needed, Global Priority Solutions stands for GPS. It's the GPS. And so the values are the GPS. And so if I stay in alignment with the values, then I will have many benefits, personally, professionally, emotionally, every which way in my life, because I'll be really aligned with wisdom. But when I get out of alignment, like a GPS, if I'm flying, sometimes I get to sit in Jerry's jet, and I sit on the other side and he's piloting, and all we're doing is we're following the GPS. We're following that line. Well, if we get out of alignment, in an hour from now, that could be a big problem. There won't be an airport to land. But all we have to do is stay in alignment. And so when we're aligned with the values, we have benefits. When we get out of alignment, then we have consequences. And most of what we're experiencing right now globally, we are in a perfect storm right now, globally. Governments are struggling to figure out where do we go next. And what is talked about every day, the problems that we have this problem, we have that problem. The majority of those are not problems, they're consequences. Because we've gotten out of alignment with wisdom. And so the good news about that is we don't have to go back. We don't have to blow each other up. We can just get back in alignment. And then we'll get benefits again, in our societies and our institutions. Most of our institutions right now are out of alignment. I get to work with governments, and that's the problem. So that's why there's consequences. So I really started this because I needed it.
Can you share a little bit about your personal journey? How it was from the beginning? You were always born again person from family, from your parents, or how it was in your life?
Well, I was, my father was an alcoholic and a violent alcoholic. And so I have my mother and my brother and I lived in that kind of surrounding. They could not keep their relationship together. I think I only lived with my actual father and mother for maybe 2 years out of my life. Most of the time I was being shipped out to uncles and aunts or sometimes government homes, and the government would get involved because of the violence. And so the effect that had on me is that I was very, very angry. And so by the time I was 15, I could drink like an adult. And I'd already been in front of the judge so many times that one day the judge said, "You're not ready for society, and society's not ready for you." And so they put me in a reform school. And so then I spent 15 to 16 in a reform school. And then I went from reform school. Once I got out, it took about 6 months, and I was in front of the same judge. And so he put me in prison for a year and a half. And
Mm-hmm.
while I was in prison, they had to do some tests on you to see if you were going to minimum security, medium security, or high security. So I had a lot of time to think. And I thought, if my dad had been different, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here today. But I think that's the first time that I felt, I didn't know then, but I think God was starting to help me. Because the next thought that came was, well, Mike, you're not in prison for what your dad did. You're in prison for what you did. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I realized that, oh, I better change my ways or this is going to be my life. And so from there, I was led to, long story short, to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I had an experience. I was born again in the backseat of a Volkswagen. Remember those little
Really?
bugs? Those little Volkswagen bugs. That's where it was again a series of events. But this couple said, "Well, do you want to be saved?" And I thought, well, I think this is a special moment here. So I said yes. But my thought was, God, I really need to know if you're real. I need to know,
Mm-hmm.
because then I'll know what to do with these people. So I said, but if you're real, then I'm yours. If you're real, I'm yours. And so that day, I was 19 years old, and my life began to change. And then I began to understand that God had wisdom, and that the best way to live would be to follow his word, his wisdom. And so then I went to a church. I met my wife. I fell in love. I got married, but I didn't know what a husband was. I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea what a husband was because I never saw one.
Mm-hmm.
and then we started having children. We have 5 children now, 11 grandchildren. We've been married for 52 years, but I didn't know what a father was, and so I had to look and observe and who's winning. I want to be on the winning team. Well, if I saw somebody and their wives were smiling, I was watching, what's he doing? What's he doing that his wife is smiling? Or if his kids were behaving, what's he doing? And then with prayer and a great wife, behind every successful man is a surprised woman.
Yes, but what a sincere answer, and thank you for being so honest and sharing us how God changed your path and really saved you from
Yes.
being, in the wrong way, going to really being having understood salvation and going through uh, discipling school,
Hmm.
how to be
Hmm.
husband, how to
Hmm.
be father for children, 5 children, 11 grandchildren. And now you have trained leaders across Mexico and Latin America. What's story that best captures both the challenge and the breakthrough of implementing round tables there?
Well, that's a really, that church eventually where I was when I first got saved, they sent my wife and I as missionaries to Mexico.
Okay.
And so we were missionaries. We worked in a Bible school, and we were working, and then God led me to meet John Schrock and Jerry, and then we came back home, and
Hmm.
but because then with the roundtables, because I spoke Spanish, and so Jerry said, "Come on, help us out with the Spanish world." And so it's opened so many doors. But what I am really, Jason, I'm just a facilitator. People say, now they introduce me in places. They say, "Oh, Mike is a world expert in transformation." And I say to them, I said, the reason I'm an expert is because it's really easy. And so the round table itself is what I'm a facilitator. I train facilitators, and then facilitators train. They go from there. And so that's when I started. When I went back, not as a missionary, but as a value-based leadership, I ended up at the White House. I ended up having dinner with the president of Mexico. I mean, as a
Mhm.
missionary, that never would have happened because Mexico has a very strong in their constitution. The government can have nothing to do with the church, nothing. And so, for me to end up having dinner in their White House, with the president, and to being able to share. And so it's been like that now for many
Mhm.
years, where I end up with I've worked with generals of armies, owners of soccer teams,
Before
business
we go
people.
into those areas, for listeners new to it, what exactly is a roundtable and why does this facilitation method scale so well across cultures and sectors?
Well, the reason for across cultures is because values are a place where we can all go. It doesn't matter. Honesty is the same. It's like the law of gravity. The law of gravity is the same no matter what culture
Everywhere.
you go in,
Mhm.
everywhere. And so the values are the same. And so really what we do when we say a round table, that is the tool that we use. 5 people in a round table, one is a facilitator, and we're going to see a value. But it's like this week you're looking at yourself in the mirror of my listening. What's my listening like? And then we're going to
Mhm.
read together, and we're going to underline what stands out to us. And then we're going to look at the benefits and we're going to look at the characteristics and some steps that we could follow. And then we're all going to share one thing that stood out to us. 1 minute, one thing. We're just going to share what stood out to us. And then everybody shares. And then we're going to do an evaluation. How is my listening in the last 3-4 days? How's my listening? And then we encourage people, hey, listen, if you want to be more real, what number would your spouse give you the last 3 or 4 days on your listing? What number would your children give you?
Mhm.
And so then we say, okay, then you write down a number. Then why did you give yourself that number? What benefits would you have to raise that number? Then who do you know that's a really good listener? And then what's a small step? Small steps create great change. So what is a small step you're going to take this week? What are you going to do with who and when to better your listening? And so then next week we all come back together and then we say, okay, I'm the facilitator. So last week my step was I did it and here's what happened. And then we go
Mhm.
around the table. What happened? What happened with your step?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then we look at the next value and we do the
Mhm.
same steps. It's just 5 steps. It's better experienced than explained.
Okay, so it's called Beyond Success.
Well, Beyond Success is a program that John Maxwell is doing. He's adapted the roundtable, the methodology,
Okay, okay.
and
So
brought it into Beyond Success as well.
okay,
Yes.
so one of the ways is this program Beyond Success, but Roundtable can be adapted in other programs. Yes.
Yes, like I do the roundtable. Like I still consult with John. I help John to launch Guatemala, Costa Rica, Paraguay. I've been consulting in Panama, Dominican. I was just in the next country is Argentina. I was just there in February to work a little bit with the team. But that's one way. There's different ways. Like the Beyond Success is pointed to one direction, but it's still the same methodology. You
Okay,
know,
so can you
and
tell
so.
us
Mhm.
the Beyond Success pathway is often an entry point to business people. I
Yes.
have heard from John Maxwell team. How do you use it, and what measurable changes do you see in participants and teams?
Yes, the Beyond Success is really it's pointed at business people, but it really it's an immediate. It's going to lead you to an opportunity to receive the Lord. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like from the church. It's
Okay.
from a Christian point of view. Value-based leadership is the same methodology. It's a round table, but it's
Okay.
based more to value-based leadership. And it's another saying that John has: everything raises or falls with leadership. And so value-based leadership allows me, for example, I work with armies, with all
Mhm.
kinds of people and institutions, police, army, the local government, wherever I can go in, where they may not be as friendly to a Christian approach. But
Mhm.
by going in, it's where the scripture says, look out for the welfare of your city. And so what we want to do is, it's like, well, I think we'll talk about it in a little bit, but that's the difference. We'll talk about Stratford. I'm here in Stratford, Canada right now, Ontario. Well, I think we'll talk about that a little later, but
Yes,
the
yes.
idea is to be salt and light and to
Mhm.
be in our community, adding value and being part.
Mhm.
Whereas the beyond success is pointed is more it's more Christianese. Mhm.
Okay, so Maxwell aligned country transformation efforts in places like Guatemala, Paraguay, and Costa Rica are frequently referenced. Which
Yes.
principles from those contexts travel well and which must be localized?
Well, I tell you, they all work well, and that what we do in those countries is really the value based leadership. It's not
Okay,
beyond success.
okay.
There we use because what we do, John, when we met John and we started collaborating with John, John said, "Hey, I have influence, and you have a methodology." And so what was happening is John is a great speaker, has lots of influence, and sells books. But when he saw our methodology, I love John. I
He
call him
adopted it to his.
I, I call
He
him the
adopted.
Maxwellizer. Yeah, I call him the Maxwellizer. And so he saw the potential. And so then it's not just he's going to come, he's going to speak, but we're going to leave people in a process. Events are really good, but they go away real fast. But a process is weekly. Now you're
Mm,
starting to get into people's minds, hearts, and I was in South Africa, and a big insurance company, a 10-story building, it was a brand new building, and walk in there, and it's like they have the values up on the wall and the mission, and they take me up to the 10th floor, and there's the owner of the company with four of his directors, and I walked in, and he said, "Mike Poulin, Global Priority Solutions. Tell me, Mike, why should we do your program?" I thought, wow, this guy's very warm.
yeah.
And so, and so I thought, so I said, I'll tell you what we do best. We will take what you have on the walls and we will put it into the minds, hearts, and actions of your people. He said, okay,
Mhm,
sit down, sit down, sit down. So
mhm.
so
Yes,
so
if
so
someone can
those work.
put into
Mhm.
practice those values and really make it profitable for the culture of which really is culture of our company, it's worth inviting. You
Yes, yes.
reportedly trained over 200,000 people worldwide.
Yes. No,
How how it
that's a lot
happened,
of people. John told me that when we first started collaborating together and we started working in Guatemala, he we had a meeting with all of his donors, and so Mark Cole is his CEO, and he was speaking, and then I was going to speak, and then John was going to speak. And so Mark is speaking, and John leans over to me and he said, "Mike, how many people have you trained?" And so I said, "John, I have no idea." "Oh, Mike, you have to know that number." Yes. so so that's when we started counting. But it's been if you look at the three countries, oh my goodness. I mean, now it's six countries, but I've been doing this for a long time. And so normally I work with, groups of 5, groups of 10, depending, I've trained as many as 4,000 in one room, you know,
Mhm,
but normally it's smaller groups, but it adds up over the years. Yeah, it adds up.
mhm.
But to
And
answer
what
your question, in those countries, what's worked the best is like the value of listening, the value of restraint, the value of hard work, the value of responsibility. the value
Mm-hmm.
of understanding people. There's so many that all of a sudden, yes, well, we'll talk a little bit more about Stratford, but yesterday,
Okay. So
uh,
you are connected
yeah,
with Stratford, Ontario. What does a city transformation roadmap look like there? Key partners, first wins, next horizons.
yeah, what we started here as a pastor that I met in Mexico. I've been meeting with John Arnott and Bill Johnson, and this pastor actually pastors the church that John and Carol Arnott founded, and it's the church that planted the Toronto church where everything happened. And
Really?
and
Oh,
it's also just another little sidetrack is the church where Justin Bieber grew up. Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
I have heard from John Arnott about it, but can you share a little bit more how it
Yes.
started?
Yeah. So with the pastor, he was very interested. He invited me to come to the city. And so, and this is just, I felt like it's a lot easier when we're working with nations, you have to get the president. When you work
Mm-hmm.
with a city, you need the mayor. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot easier.
Yes.
It's a lot smaller and it's a lot less expensive. For what
Mm-hmm.
John is the money that is cost to do those countries has been millions and millions of dollars. I want to tell you, and John has worked really hard to raise all that money. But in a city, it's a lot. So you go to the mayor, you go to the authorities in that city. So we went
Mm-hmm.
to the mayor. We introduced it. We talked to him. We went to the chief of police, the chief of fire. We went to business people. We went to pastors. We went to maybe churches like we had a meeting with the lady yesterday that is over all the Catholic education and looking at bringing the values into the Catholic schools. And so we're just working with every group, but it's smaller. It's more manageable and it's
Mm-hmm.
less expensive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's how
Okay.
we started. And then we introduced them to the concept and what could happen. And then we did a round table with that so they could see the product and see how it works. And so the chief of police said, "Hey, I'm first. Start with me." And so we had a round table with him. He really understood. Yesterday we had a round table. No, Friday we did a round table with him and his team of leaders. And then after we did the round table with them, they had a staff meeting. And he texted us after. He said, "I want to tell you that is the best staff meeting we've had in a long, long time."
Mm.
And so it brings value. It raises up the consciousness. It's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. Yeah.
I have met Steve Long,
Of
who
course, I know
meant
Steve.
Steve.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Steve introduced me to many from Catch the Fire. He used to be a senior pastor of Toronto,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Love Steve. Yeah.
and he travels a lot and oversee and really helps and mentor a lot of business people, and
Hmm.
is really supporting
Hmm.
such such things as
Hmm.
table.
Hmm.
But values work is also personal. How do you integrate the same values at home with family roots, decisions, conflicts?
Hmm. It's the same. Here's what happens. For example, when we were doing Friday with the chief of police and his team, uh, in the process of we'll do a roundtable so you'll understand more. But
Mhm.
in the process, most people will talk about their families. They'll talk about their relationships. In South Africa, I mainly worked in the more like in the like insurance investment companies, more in that realm, and it was really interesting because we do, for example, listening, and they would say when they would evaluate themselves, they say, "At work, I give myself a 6. At home, I give myself a 2."
Mhm.
You see, because just the way it works. Now, the reason it works so well, and you're a believer, I the only explanation isn't it's because the Spirit of God is in the process. I mean,
Mm.
I trained some people yesterday morning,
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing self-esteem, the value of self-esteem. And this pastor's wife was in tears. Just in her evaluation, she was saying, this is a real battle, and she was taking a step to make it better. And it's a powerful. The Spirit of God's on it. Yeah, and for me, well, that's the best place to be.
Mm-hmm. I love to hear, such stories, personal stories. Can you share some more, which stayed in your heart and also told you keep going? Do you
Oh
have?
man, I worked in Nigeria with the federal police and their military, and they were all in uniform, and half were Muslim and half were Christian, but you didn't
Mhm,
know who was who. And so I just did the training and put them into the round table, and we did restraint. We did the value of restraint, and I had 100 of them every day for 9 days, except for the Friday, of course, because that's their day off. But for 9 days, I had 100 of them, and so we did the value of restraint, and they evaluate themselves. And so, we can tell people like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That's not the right thing. But when we train facilitators, we do a different thing. We do a different thing. And so, excuse me, Phil, we do a different thing. And so, in that, we're not there to coach people. We're not there to correct people. Because again, I said, the Spirit of God is in it. So here's what happened. So this guy said, well, how was your evaluation? What number did you give yourself? He said, oh, I gave myself a 2. He said, really? I said, why? He said, well, last night I came home and dinner wasn't ready. And my wife got an attitude. And he said, and I'm kind of, where's this going? I look at the other men in the room, and he said, and I let her have one. And I thought, and I'm looking around, and everybody's looking like, this is pretty normal. And I thought, whoa, it's a different culture. So I said, okay, so what benefits would you have to raise your rating? He said, oh, well, probably I would have been a better night last night. The atmosphere in my house would have been better. You know, so I said, so what action are you going to take? Small
mhm,
step. What are you going to do? He
mhm.
said, well, when I get home tonight, I'm going to apologize to my wife.
Wow.
And so I don't know. I don't know if he was Muslim or Christian, but that's where I say, it starts by people in the process that begin to understand that, wait a minute, I'm
Mhm,
created for better than this,
mhm,
and so then God's wisdom starts to work, and it's God's love that leads people to repentance. And so, Paul talks about some sow, some water, and some reap. I am a general sower. I am sowing all the time, but I'm
mhm,
also looking to, sometimes I'm watering, and then sometimes I'm reaping, you know, um, the man that we were working with, that was the liaison to the president. When I came
mhm,
back, because we trained them, then we gave them 10 weeks of material, and I came back 12 weeks later. Now they had done 12 roundtables. And so uh, the testimonies were great. But when I landed, my driver picked me up, and he said, the liaison guy wants you at his home. He wants to see you tonight. So we'll go to your hotel and just shower up, and then we'll go to his home. Well, we get to his home. The army's all around there, there's protection. And we'll go in there, and he's having a bit of a party. So I'm thinking he just wants me to meet people, I guess. And so we start. Now he was Muslim. He was Muslim, and so he says. Then people were leaving. I thought, well, okay, I guess I'm going. So no, Mike, you stay, you stay. And so now it's just he and I. And he said, come to my office. So he said, the last time you were here, you said you'd been married 40 years. And I said, yeah. He said, oh, I need to find out how you do that, because we're married 8 years and I'm ready to finish.
mhm.
And so I said to him, well, if you're going to talk about marriage, we need to talk about covenant. And so if you were going to talk about covenant to really understand marriage, we need to understand God, because God, it's his idea. And to understand covenant, we have to understand the cross and Jesus on the cross, because his blood is our covenant. Are you okay with that? He said, yeah, I am okay. Tell me. So we spent the next hour sharing the gospel with him. So those things, you just have to be patient, and God is moving. God's moving all the time. All the time. He's always at work, even when we're sleeping.
Yes. And what have you learned about building the coach pipeline so run tables multiply without losing quality? Training, certification, ongoing support, how it works?
Well, here's what we learned. It is simple, so therefore you can duplicate it. And then, so in our training, so we always finish our training. We'll have people experience it. So they, oh, okay, I get it. I experience it. I know the benefits now. I see it. And now to duplicate, we think back at, have you ever seen a movie? Have you ever seen a movie where you got a little tear? You ever watch a movie and, you get a little tear, or you watch, or you watch a movie and you're very inspired,
Braveheart.
Well, when they Braveheart, there you go. Now it gives me freedom, right?
Yes.
Now, you get that. Well, when they show that movie for the first time, the directors, the investments people, the writers, they're all there. They're not watching the movie. They're watching the people, because they know that at a certain time, they should be laughing. At a certain time, they should be emotionally touched. At a certain time. How did they do that? They had a script. And so these actors, it's not even their own words. Somebody wrote the words, but it has the impact. It influences. And so we have a script for our people to follow at first. And so that they can learn and stay online, because it's like a recipe. If you start adding your own things to it, you're not going to get the same thing. I can tell you now. But if you follow the recipe, I'm telling you, it happens. Yeah. Yeah.
You've worked with governments, police, military, and businesses. How do you adapt the message for high-stakes environments where trust can be low? As I see in Poland, we see that the trust is not, it's very low.
I'm working right now with President Bukele in El Salvador, and he has done unbelievable things there. And he is a man that he's a believer, and he's a value man. He understands what makes life work, where the benefits are and where the consequences, and how to avoid the consequences and have more benefits. And right now, where we are globally, this is what I'm learning. It's where we are globally with our institution, especially our governments, is that we're in a perfect storm. Because if you're going to fix some problems, you're going to look like a dictator. And then the enemy can come along and say, he's a dictator, and sow fear in people and do all of that. And so I'm reminded of, I worked with the army in Honduras here just a couple of summers ago. And they're still working. They're still going at it. They're doing really good. But the general said to me, when he talked with me, he said, I can't believe these young people that are coming into the army. They got no discipline. They got no values. And he's going on, And so I said, no, you have to say, my general, Well, my general, I said, I totally understand what you're saying. But, when it comes to values, you can't, you want to have, responsible people. You want them to be on time. You want them to be, to be listening. And I said, well, you can't order that. You can't command that. You have to model it. And so if we do this, you need to be in a round table as well. because
Mm-hmm.
your people around you need to see that you're also aligning, And what gets
And
so
how he react?
difficult, right? And what gets so
How he
difficult
react?
is the old guard leadership feel like if I let people see me somehow I'll lose my authority, which is totally wrong. Because here's what happens on 1 to 10. Let's say I'm listening, 1 to 10, or on restraint. You know, if you're sitting with your team, they already know your number.
Mm-hmm.
They're just waiting for you to
You to
acknowledge your number.
understand.
And so this is an opportunity. And when you do that, then people trust you. Then people are willing to follow you. Because people know you have the authority, but they also know you're like them. And you're working your thing too. And so it's a wonderful, empowering, inspiring way to lead.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
what forms of resistance show up most often, and which values help teams move past it?
Well, it's interesting because right now, for example, I was just telling you about, I was just in El Salvador 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, and I can see now that, there's opposition in the political world. There's opposition. And so the opposition is always working on fear, and it's always working on division.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe now that for leadership to really create unity, you have to envision and unity and go in the right direction that's going to bring benefits, is that you need to tie your decisions with a value. So you're not just saying, we're doing this. We're doing this because this is the value. And now this is the benefits we're going to have. And I think that that's the way you're going to start, taking the opposition out. I just heard this thing this week about when you introduce change, 10% of the people see it. They see it and they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
80% of the people will follow. They'll follow. But you got that 10% that are just resisting all the time. And I think what we've done that maybe is going to change now is everybody's paid attention to the 10%. All we're getting in the news is the voice of the 10%. But I think it's going to change that. And the way you change it is you don't pay attention to the 10%. You pay attention to the other 10% that are doing it because they're inspiring the 80%. And the values are going to give you that communication. If you communicate, it's like value-based leadership communicates with values. There's something there that when you do that, then I believe you're going to get the 90%, and you'll always have the 10%. A long time ago, I was in Mexico. And I had 2 students with me, and we got a flat tire. And so the students took the tire off, and they said, "Why don't you stay with the car? And it's only 5 miles. We'll get a ride." And so they got a ride. They went into town to fix it, and we're in the middle of a small place, but the whole fields. And if I don't see a pastor with real sheep, pastor, he's coming along with his sheep. I thought, God is sending me a lesson. I'm going to get to talk to a real pastor. And so he comes along, and I start talking with him. And at one point I said, "Hey, what do you do? What do you do with the sheep that just won't listen?" They're never with the program. They're always going off. He said, he had a word in Spanish. He said, "Oh, los mañosos, los mañosos." I said, yeah, los mañosos. He said, "Oh, they never change."
Mañosos. We don't worry about mañosos. They are always there.
They're
And
always there.
always very shouting.
Yeah. But the values give us a way to communicate rather than argue.
Yes. Don't confront those 10% because it's pointless. If a mayor or CEO listening wants to start tomorrow, what would your first 90 days look like to launch roundtables and build momentum in their city?
Well, first we get a team. We first
Mhm.
get a team on the ground. So first you train a team, and it doesn't have to be a large team.
How many
Year and a
people?
half ago, a year and a half ago, I went into the Dominican, and they did a breakfast, invited education, army, all kinds of people to this breakfast, and we presented the idea of value-based leadership and the benefits, and to eliminate the consequences and have more benefits. We said, if you want to be trained, just we had a QR code, just go ahead and register, and we'll train you. And what
Mhm.
I did, I was working with a pastor there. And what I did is I said, Pastor, give me 3 or 4 of your best people, like your most character people, people that you trust, people that can speak in public. Give me 3 or 4 of those. And so I did that week. I probably did maybe about 8 trainings, 10 trainings to 3 hours. And they were with me the whole time. And so between trainings, we would eat, and I'd say, okay, why do you think I did this? What did you notice me do? And what's your questions? And so when I left, there were 4 of me when I left. 4 could
Mhm.
keep the work going. And
Mhm.
they have, I can show you a video that I'll send you a video that it's had 1,000 soldiers graduating from roundtables. They've been in businesses. They're helping women that are trying to get out from under being trafficked and try to get back. They're doing prisons. They're all over the place, all over the place. And
Mhm.
it's a team of 4 people.
Wow. What is your dream? How,
My dream.
Mike, your dreams for the uh, Europe, for the nations, for your family, your personal dreams. You
Well, I'm
have accomplished
74.
so much.
I'm 74 years old. And so my dream, when I was first saved, I heard a preacher. He's 91 now. He's 91 now. When I was first saved, I heard him. And my wife and we had coffee with them just before we left Vancouver. And my wife was flower girl in their wedding. And at 91, he had preached the week before. And I remember a long time ago, he preached a sermon and he said, if I'm dreaming, don't wake me up. Don't wake me up if I'm dreaming. And my life today is very much like that. I feel so blessed because I'm able to contribute and I'm able to make people and things better. I have a beautiful family that I never hoped or dreamed of. And it's all because of the Lord and his wisdom and his grace and his forgiveness. And so now Europe is very interesting because I came in 2020 and
Mhm.
because I was born French. So I
Oh.
spent 6 weeks. I spent 6 weeks with a French family that had a pool business, and they're also kind of ministry too. And so I was going to come back to France, my wife and I, and I left March 15th, and we were coming back April 7th. But March 15th, the world shut down, right?
Mhm.
2020, and so
Yeah.
we're just now going back. And I'm going to be working with this gentleman. They have, I don't know, 50, 60 churches. And so we're working with them here for the next couple of weeks. And then I got I got this, I'm meeting this gentleman called Jacek. And so,
You're mostly welcome to Poland. Yes, I hope it's the journey which will start,
yes,
and Poland and
yes,
Roundtable will be all over our country because we
yes,
need formation. And those
yes,
values, which are well known but are not practiced, but we should be honest with one another and be transparent
yes,
and really start
yes,
putting them into
yes.
action and see transformation of our families and businesses and relationship everywhere
In our
where we go.
environment.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. When I worked in Nigeria, it's 172 million people, 40% unemployment.
Hmm.
It's a country with lots of natural resources, but nobody invests there anymore. Nobody invests because of one value: honesty. One value. One value if everybody got in line with that one value, would transform that nation. Their whole economics would change. It would be incredible. I knew a high-end guy in Houston, Texas, in oil, and he told me every year they tried to do something small with Nigeria to see if they've changed their ways, but they're still out of alignment with honesty. And so big companies, you're not going to go there and invest money when they know that now they'll be hijacked. They'll have all this money there, and they won't be because they're dishonest. And so it's not, there's I believe there's some, I love cultures, every culture is different. It's beautiful. I mean, God created that way. But there's strong values, that if we can help with a tool to get people back in alignment, then we'll see unity and prosperity and a better world than the other. It seems like if we don't do this, we're all going to destruction. So, yeah.
Yes, hopefully your way and roundtable will impact our nation through the strategy and through really encouraging people to put into practice the values which are the most important for our, relationship with one another.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mike, for being so inspiring and for what you are doing in so many countries. And you are most welcome. And I hope to see you soon in Poland. And many people.
I believe Poland is coming. I believe Poland is coming. God's got a plan.
Yes. And I have a question, not question,
Yes.
but suggestion to our audience. If anybody would like to, get around table, it's your time. It's your time. Just contact us, send information about you, and we want to form the people who will be later on leaders of roundtable in many cities in Poland. So thank you very much once again. Be blessed. And if you can pray for Poland and pray for our audience, I would appreciate it.
Well, because of you, you're on my prayer list. Poland is on my prayer list. God bless you, my friend.
Be blessed and thank you. Thank you once again. Love from Poland and see you in Poland.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Be blessed.